Bustle. Giving a shout out right now to SPR, Sparta Low. Y'all already know what it is. Sauce and egg. Big shout out to SPR, Spotter Low. You know, I'm in the black box, had to come through, tap in, show love one time. Yeah, y'all make sure y'all subscribe, stay tuned, all that.
All that and then some until the end come. Hit the YouTube streets, find a corner, and bend one. This time we pulling up on channel name. What's the title of the channel? My bad. Hannibal is hungry. Go follow up. He said Fani Willis loses her cool after epic court loss. Blames everyone. You know, she had Trump up against it. I guess she thought she had him. She couldn't even get Young Thug right. So I know if she couldn't get Young Thug right, then dealing with Trump was more than she was ready for. But with no further ado, let's see what they say Fani has been up to.
In this job, and women in general standing into these positions, to threaten me is a waste of time. It's a complete waste of their time. And it's not going to get anyone results. One thing that people learn about me is I'm equal opportunity prosecutor.
Disaster with a boyfriend. With a boyfriend that she paid $1 billion for his expertise, but he never did it before. Now she should be prosecuted.
So if you come into this community and you violate the law, you're going to be held accountable.
Another big story involving a recent Georgia Supreme Court decision in which the state's highest court voted 4-3 not to hear the DA's office's appeal of a lower court's effective removal of Ms. Willis in her office as prosecutors in the election interference.
We are living in a culture of fear. I think you have both prosecutors, citizens, and even judges that are afraid right now for good reason.
We're living in a culture of fear. The judges are scared, the prosecutors are scared, the citizens are scared. Everyone is terrified except her. But the excuse hides something bigger, because it wasn't fear that got her kicked off the Trump case, it was her own decisions. So today we're gonna watch this video and break down how
she got the boot off the case. I thought the case just so Trump's still up against it, or what? Is the case over and she just off of it?
Fear became the perfect cover story for a DA who refuses to take accountability, and how one of the biggest cases in America got fumbled like a wet football. And you will see this little interview that she had that it's just, she's crashing out. She is totally taking a giant L, but let's get into it.
Let's get to a Channel 2 Action News exclusive here at 6 o'clock. Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis is reacting to a Georgia Supreme Court's decision that effectively keeps her off the election interference case against President Donald Trump and others. New at 6, Channel 2 investigative reporter Mark Winnie live now in downtown Atlanta. So Mark, the DA referred to a culture of fear.
Yeah, the explanation of what first the trial court judge and then the Georgia Court of Appeals and finally the Supreme Court of Georgia did concerning the election interference case could get mired down in technical legal details. But I think it's fair to say that what DA Fani Willis told us did not get bogged down in technicalities.
What's your reaction to what the Georgia Supreme Court did or elected not to do?
I think judges are human beings. We are living in a culture of fear. It did not surprise me.
Our appointment.
This is the problem with Fani Willis and people like her. Remember, way back in the day, Fani Willis used to be the face of justice in Georgia. I think she wanted to be the face of justice the entire country. She was running that RICO playbook like she invented it. Remember, she took on Trump, the rappers. You saw how that went. She was everywhere. And for a minute, people thought that she was going to be a real big star and she was going to be untouchable. But came the Wade situation. Her special prosecutor friend that turned out to be more special than anyone realized, because he wasn't just handling evidence, he was handling her, literally.
Yep, and that's why a lot of times women are not expected to perform in certain capacities, man. She got caught slipping.
Vacation tabs, romance, reimbursement, the Bahamas. It was a complete and total conflict of interest. But you notice with that answer, she didn't say that. She just said, well, people are scared. I mean, once they figured out, and I'm talking about Trump's lawyers, started to figure out that she had this relationship with Nathan Wade, a special prosecutor, they probably started moonwalking with joy. And suddenly, every decision she made was being dragged through the
Trump team was cold for digging that out. I know she wasn't expecting that.
Like a crime scene carpet. And instead of addressing that, Fani says that people were just scared to see it. Fani Willis wants us to believe that everyone's just scared to stand up to Trump. Really?
For an interview with Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis involved a story we're pursuing about a recent murder conviction. But she says while we were there, she was willing to talk to us about another big story involving a recent Georgia Supreme Court decision in which the state's highest court voted 4-3 not to hear the DA's office's appeal of a lower court's effective removal of Ms. Willis in her office as prosecutors in the election interference case in which now President Donald Trump and others have pled not guilty. And as usual, she was not going to pull punches.
I think you have both prosecutors, citizens, and even judges that are afraid right now for good reason. And so it didn't surprise me.
All these declarations don't mean a amount of beans.
There's many members of that Supreme Court I'm very fond of, but they're human beings. They have families, and I'm sure they were afraid to do anything other than that.
You know, by her doing that, destroys relationships that she has with that same Supreme Court. You're saying to those judges that they were scared to make the right decision. That doesn't really bode well when you have to deal with the Supreme Court on numerous occasions, but she doesn't care. Because instead of just saying, I messed up, she can just turn around and say, well, they were too scared for me to continue to push this case forward.
Not many have found ability to take accountability.
This is not really good strategy by Fani Willis, but if you've seen many of her mistakes, she seems like she doesn't make a whole lot of good decisions at all.
Reached out to a public information officer for the Supreme Court of Georgia who emailed, I cannot comment beyond what the court has already said in its written opinions about these cases.
The Supreme Court only addresses issues of greater legal importance to the entire state of Georgia. And they said this case wasn't one of those cases.
For perspective, we turn to defense lawyer and former DeKalb District Attorney Robert James.
The Supreme Court specifically did not make a finding about D.A. Willis's conduct.
We reached out to Steve Sadow, lawyer for President Trump. Sadow's statement said in part, quote, Willis's reaction to the Georgia Supreme Court's fundamentally correct decision, refusing to hear the case by claiming it was due to its fear of President Trump, is absolutely ludicrous, unquote. It added, quote, she brought a political prosecution against the 45th and 47th president of the U.S. who is innocent, unquote. It also said, quote, she refused to accept the odor of mendacity found by the trial court and simply expected the Georgia Court of Appeals to gloss over it, unquote.
How is she personally held responsible or accountable for bringing charges against the president if they were untrue when he's been found guilty of 30-something felonies? I mean, so many people go to court, beat the case, and then the DA is not then prosecuted or treated any different.
Quote. The statement concluded, quote, her disqualification was the result of what she did and for no other reason, unquote.
And that's the thing that she doesn't want to admit, or she's probably never will admit, that it was her actions. She could have hired anybody else, but she went with Nathan Wade. And that was the tragic mistake, the biggest case of her life. And she went with a guy that she was messing around with romantically. That's really a point. She shouldn't have done that. It was a huge error on her part. But you won't hear her talking about that.
D.A. Willis says she believes the executive director of the Prosecuting Attorneys Council, who bears the responsibility of trying to find another prosecutor to take over the election interference case or to keep it for PAC, has a tough job.
The reality is it's going to be hard to find a prosecutor that's not afraid to prosecute that case when one of the primary defendants is threatening anyone that would dare to prosecute them. Not only do they not have the resources to do.
She want everybody to think she a hero beyond, nah, baby, it's other people ready to step up.
The case, but there's fear mongering going on right now.
And there aren't that many very large DA's offices in Georgia with the resources to handle something like this. And number two, politically, it's a hot potato.
And that's another problem too. Her actions messed this entire case up for anyone who wants to even get into this case, because she laid the toxic foundation. Why would anyone attempt to do this when it looks like Fani Willis was trying to use Trump as a way to get her name out there nationally? It seemed like it was more of a political thing than actual evidence to suggest that this was some sort of election interference.
She took a L with the thug thing, took a L with the Trump thing. He's just taking L's all around the board.
This was a big waste. It's similar to what she did with the whole YSL case. She wanted to go after some big famous rapper to make it seem like he was the next Al Capone, and that didn't happen because that guy was able to go home and make more rap records. Where was the giant Rico?
Now, I read some of defense lawyer Steve Sadow's comments to DA Willis. She said she would not dignify it with a response.
What she didn't address in that interview was the stack of problems circling her office, like those travel records that she's now ordered to hand over, plus another ongoing investigations and missteps that kept piling up. But fear isn't the reason the Supreme Court told her to sit this one out. The Georgia Supreme Court had one job: decide if they should hear her appeal after she was removed from the case. They looked at the paperwork and said, nah, we're good. The vote happened. There was no long speech. It wasn't any kind of dramatic music. It was just a quiet note. They basically said, this isn't about anything other than, this ain't that deep. You got taken off the case. Move on. But now Fani wants to say that we're all living in a culture of fear. Even the judges are afraid. She blamed fear like it was the next COVID variant or something like that. According to her, everyone from the prosecutors to the justices' grandmoms are shaking in their boots. It's a wild defense because the court didn't even accuse her of wrongdoing. They just said they didn't want to revisit the lower court's decision. You made your bed, now lie in it. So Fani Willis needs to provide that spin. Instead of saying, yeah, I messed up, she wants to flip it into some kind of movement. That's the same trick every politician uses when they run out of receipts.
That's that Umar Bush.
Shift the story from you to the system, even though you're a part of the damn system. If you're fighting fear, you can't lose. I mean, fear isn't going to sue for defamation. But the problem is that message doesn't fix the damage. It just builds a fan club around denial. And that's how careers in politics die slow. Not from one scandal, but from 1,000 excuses that pile up while no one buys them anymore. I mean,
that's also Umar's.
The claim that the Supreme Court acted out of fear is absolutely ludicrous. Her disqualification was a result of what she did and for no other reason. Now, say what you will about Trump's lawyers, but the way they were able to spin this back around, they basically saying her culture of fear line is proof that she can't accept.
If you thought Trump was going to let a black female attorney with anything other than or anything less than a spotless, spick and span background take him down in his white man's America, you was crazy.
Responsibility. Blaming fear is like saying I didn't crash the car, gravity did. It's not technically false, but come on. It's your actions that caused the car accident. It caused the crash. So now there's going to be a new prosecutor, and most likely they're not going to take this case. Nobody wants it because this case is nuclear, politically radioactive, and resource heavy. Whoever is going to jump into this basically has to really believe that this is going to work. Now, Fani is going to blame Trump's threats, but this is because of her mess. She turned what could have been a case into a political minefield. Now, every other DA in Georgia is going to look at this case and say, you know what? Why bother doing this? This whole saga and sagas that are very similar, we're talking about Letitia James, just shows how politics and now this term lawfare makes every side look like they're the hero in a movie where everyone else is corrupt. But if everyone is the hero, who's left to tell the actual truth? I don't think Georgia's courts collapsed because of fear. They collapsed under the weight of pride. The pride of a DA who thought she was untouchable, pride from politicians who saw an opportunity to make headlines, and pride from a system that rather looks strong than actually be consistent. She lost because accountability is scarier than Trump. And I don't know. I think this is probably the end for Fani Willis, at least on a national stage. But let me know what you guys think about this.
Yeah, appreciate you for the commentary, man. Fani Willis, all I see is overzealous prosecutor that got caught up on her two most high-profile situations, taking major L's, and she might as well just take a hike, find something else to do with her time, because I don't think public high-profile adjudication is in the cards for her future. I don't think it was meant for her. She let her personal, private Punani party kind of like bring about the downfall of her political platform. Shame on.
Yeah, neighborhood in Boston. Giving a shout out right now to SPR. Spot alone, y'all already know what it is. So I'm saying, big shout out to SPR, Spotter Low. You know, I'm in the black box, had to come through, tap in, show love one time. Yeah, y'all make sure y'all subscribe, stay tuned, all that.